This is Nancy focused.
Well, but should it be Nancy focused? Should it be focused on a town and some of its history, which is a town here, and it's a town in many other places, whether it's a western town or a New England town or a southern town. It reminds you of places you've been or people that you know from your town or from other places or something. But I've been there sometime, but I don't know when. You're reminded. If you've traveled much, you've been to other places, or you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, and you say, all right, there's a lot of different cultures going on. How do we all get along? How do we make a small town a bigger town in a bigger world and get along with each other? I'm an old-time member of the church. Long time ago, back in the 60s, when I had the energy to do all sorts of things and help run organizations and chase kids and yell at them and once in a while paint. One of the good friends of the church who is making sure that we did this right and had proper decoration at a low price was Jordan Truth. And he said one day, looking at this room, said, Nancy, that's a big bare wall. I think you should do a mural of Chagrin Falls on it. And I said, oh, Jordan, I don't have time to do this. I kept looking at the wall and nobody had volunteered. It was still bare. And what artist can bear the opportunity to fill up a big white wall like this? So I said, well, I'll do it, but I have to do it at home. I'm going to do it on canvas that we will unroll and put it up on that wall. So I said, I've got to get busy and do this. And I bought 2 pieces of 18 feet of canvas. And I thought, I did some sketches, and I said, I don't know, how do you put a square town on a long sheet like this? You look at a city and a town, and it's either rectangles or triangles. And you could title it urban geometry. And in a sense, that's sort of what this style of, except I call this style facades because they're all just the fronts of the building. Sometimes they show the sides of the building, and it's a cartoon. And if you see cartoons in the funny paper, I love cartoons. I have to read them every day. So I consider that mural a town cartoon. If you want to sound a little fancier, call it facades. And so over 2 years, I did this on my floor and sort of sketched it out, and I did in acrylic paintings, and all the kids in the neighborhood that came over, and they looked at it and, made comments, and the family dog knew all about it, walked on it, and wagged his tail, and finally, and I had too many other things to do, so I didn't spend much time on it. Once in a while, I'd get a few hours in 1 week to work on it. So it was sort of slow, and finally, 2 years later, I said, all right, I'm ready. We have to put up some plywood, some marine plywood that isn't going to warp, and varnish it good. So Larry Trace did that, and I got my pieces out, and one day, it was the day of its birth, and we put it on the floor under lots of drop cloths underneath.
Yeah.
And I brought up a bucket of wallpaper paste and slathered it. First, before I had to do that, I had to vacuum all the dog hairs off so it would stick to the wall. It was exciting, and Larry told me the next day, Nancy, I didn't know this was going to work. It oozed paste all night long. Well, it's up there. And for better or worse, and I kept looking and thinking of spots, oh, I don't like the way this looks, or that looks, or the other thing looks, but it's there. And I said, I'll have to go and change it, but I never did.
What's the John Townsend story of him rushing across the lawn? Is there a story there?
Oh, I have him in the painting.
Yes, right at the corner of the church in his robe.
Oh, he was running. He was being late for a service. I don't think he ever was, but I wanted to put him in somewhere. And there's a lady in there that's walking down the street near Taggart's toy store, I think, and that's my mother-in-law. And I did that to humor her. She sort of looked like that, and she had an apartment above Taggart's toy store. Could you do it any better having a grandmother above Taggart's toy store?
Man.
My kids love to stop in and talk to her and find out all sorts of things they couldn't ask their mother. Heaven forbid, but they could ask their grandmother, and she was much nicer about it. Sue Williams, she had 2 daughters, and had her youngest daughter, and not long before that, she had gotten a bad case of polio. She was very pregnant when she got the polio, and she had to be in an iron lung. They had to take her,
My.
and they had to take her out of the iron lung to have the baby. And she survived it all, and the baby was fine. She was paralyzed. She couldn't move anything. She was paralyzed for the rest of her life. So the whole town took such good care of her, and we all knew her, so she was a symbol of the town. There's a funny story about the cannon. Somebody loaned it to the village. They didn't have a place for it, but they thought this is a Civil War cannon, so it looked nice on the lawn. And Civil War, nice touch of history. Well, they thought he was never going to come and get his cannon, and they thought he'd just given it to us. So they assumed that it was their cannon, and he assumed that it was still his, and they were about to give it up. So he came one night when nobody was around, and if I remember right, he took it apart and took it home. So that was a big brouhaha, one of these small town big crises. We lost our cannon, they eventually got it back. That was during the Goldwater campaign. And upstairs, there was a radical lady lawyer that very young and full of the word, and she was very democratic. And here she was upstairs, so that was her sign. I'd forgotten that. But here was a Republican headquarters downstairs, and her sign over them all, vote no.
Oh, man.
Nobody made her take down the sign. It was there for a while. Oh, that was taking an art class down to the river and the waterfall. It was all interesting to get to know kids, and it helps you find out who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, and you find out there's a lot I don't know. And you find out some of the things you didn't know, and find out still more things that you don't know. Oh, 1968, that's when I finished it. I've been telling everybody it was 67. So I guess it wasn't. Well, that's all right. Forget that. On one end, there was a very old, dilapidated gray house, and it had some very nice architecture. It was classic. Didn't have any running water or electricity, but they let a policeman sleep at a free rent if he'd stay there. And I don't know how he got along, but he did. Finally, the fire department used it as a practice fire burn. Boy Scouts were very active in town and doing good deeds, and the Federated Church still has a 150, I think. They still have that Boy Scout troop. They were the cream de cream of Boy Scouts in town. They're the ones that really behaved well and did lovely things and helpful to the elderly and going on great camping trips and so forth. So my one son belonged to one that was run by a sloppy bachelor, and he loved the kids. And they did sort of what they wanted to, and they didn't do anything Boy Scouts were supposed to do once in a while. They'd make them behave, but they had a lot of fun and misbehaved on all their camping trips and so forth. I heard a little bit about it, but my son wasn't about to tell me anything. I just heard it from the grapevine.
Did you expect that thing would be up there this many years?
No, I thought sure, and I always, if anybody ever wants to take it down, I thought, where they can take it down and roll it up and give it to the Historical Society.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not being recorded. But
Not at all.
anyway, you didn't hear it from me.